what would you say? You have a very diverse background. Mm-hmm. What would you say you're teaching now? Because I mean, I see you a lot with the Tong Bei, but I've also seen you recently within the last 6 months to a year, kind of doing the Tong Bei-ized Kali. Do you still
And I also do swords. Like I also took apart all the weapons forms. I teach a lot of like weapons because I love weapons. I love all weapons. Anyway, so what I did was I Tong Bei-ified all the weapons forms. And then what I did too was this, because people, you know what? It came down to this. People were teaching weapons forms, especially partner sets. My gripe was this. People were teaching partner sets as choreography. And I was like, well, that don't make no sense. So you think of the whole, no, but you think about the whole like history of Chinese martial arts, and like there's only like a couple of codified partner sets, and one of the main ones is called San Cai Jian, Three Treasures Sword, which I first learned from Master Zhu in New York, and Mike was my partner then, and we would do it in competitions. Kathy Yang and her brother would do it. They're Yang Jingming's kids. They did a beautiful version of San Cai Jian, and it's been done for like hundreds of years, right? And the way that it's always taught is this. People learn the whole solo form, and it repeats itself, right? And then they learn it with the partner. So then this person does side A, this person does side B. And then they stick it together. And I swear to God, people would be learning this form for months and months, and then it still looked terrible. And then I was like, you know what? I think this is a terrible way to teach San Cai Jian. I'm going to teach it in a different way. When I teach San Cai Jian, I'm going to do an experiment. And this was an experiment I started last year. And this has completely changed my teaching approach. I'm going to teach San Cai Jian. First, they're going to learn to hit all the targets on the tree. Okay. So basically San Cai Jian, if you break it up, it has, it's basically 4 sections and then a little bit of transition and then kind of a flowery intro. The intro I would call is calibration section. Okay. But then if you look at the solo form, and this is very, very interesting. Okay. If you look at the solo form, it starts with a particular move. Now, if you started a solo form, do you think it should start with the attack or should it start with the parry?
I would think the attack.
Yes. But, and this is true almost for every weapons form. This is really interesting. The side A is actually the defending side. And so people were learning the defending side first, and then they would learn the attack side, and then they'd stick it all together and then kind of try and mash it together like a jigsaw puzzle. But they didn't know exactly what targets they were hitting. They would guess. And I'm like, this is terrible. It's really messed up this way because when I said I'm going to train it with body methods, they're going to learn to hit a tree or target, and they're going to hear this. Okay. And when they hear that, they're going to understand what they should be hitting, what targets. And then what I did was like, after they learned that, I then taught the partner set, right? And I said, there's a way to teach the partner set. And this I found by trial and error. And it worked beautifully because in fact, I'd spent 20 years doing this partner set with 2 different partners. The first was Mike Martello, and the second was Kim Hawkland. They were both disciples, multiple disciples of many masters, great Mantis Kung Fu practitioners. And they were great partners because we were so in sync with each other. It looked like we were, like ice dancing, but then you know what? If you have a partner that's so in sync with you, you don't even really need to think strategically. And so then when I had my students who didn't match me maybe as well, I was like, oh, you guys are all off on timing. What is this? And then I realized they would go, they didn't know which targets they were hitting. I was like, stop it. We're going to start a new system. And so what I'd say is before you actually react, because everybody, once they learn a choreographed set, they just start to go on autopilot. It's like, you do this, I do this. And then they go. Right? And I go, no, it's going to be action, reaction, and you're going to actually touch what you're going to strike. So if I'm going to jab you, I'm going to actually use this blunt, padded weapon first, and I'm going to touch your heart. then you're going to respond. And then I'm going to see your reaction. So then it'd be like 1, action, reaction. 2, action, reaction. So 1 would be like thrust to the heart, action, pair, and then the parry is the reaction. And then 2 would be like cut to the neck, and they touch the neck. And then you have to react to that point. And so in doing this, 1, action, reaction, 2, action, reaction, 3, action, reaction, then I'd say, okay, take away the sound. And then when they did it, they understood the targets perfectly because they had actually touched the targets. No one was ahead of the other person. Their striking was correct. And because they had learned on a tree to strike with momentum beforehand, the body mechanics were correct. And then after that, I said, now you show me the solo form. And this was the new approach I did. And I was like, it worked perfectly. I'm sorry, it worked so well. I was like, yes. And I had people disagree with me online. Oh, no, you can't teach Sansai Gen like this. We have to do it the traditional way. Everybody learns the solo form first, and then you do your partner A, B, A, B. Nobody ever hit anything. There was never any hitting of a boxing bag or a tree or any kind of body mechanics training to use the hips, training to use momentum, hearing a rhythm to your kung fu. None of this ever, and so people got very precious. And also because, look at this, we would train with metal blades. And here's my thing. When you train with a metal blade, and you see it in longsword fighting too, like when you have like the medieval Hema guys and they're using the long swords, what happens is they fail to learn. I'm sorry, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but from my point of view, a lot of times they sacrifice that because obviously you don't want to kill anyone when you're training, but you're using a live blade. And because you're using a live blade, they don't want to go full throttle because if you fully swing your hit, you're going to injure that person, So that's why when I start with the training, I'll have them practice with their partners with shinais. We use the wooden sticks, the padded sticks, and you can wail on your partner. Like get the hips in there, touch the targets, know how to deflect without injuring your partner. And then when you get to the sword, because once people have, the metal sword in their hands, their movement becomes very precious. Then they start only using their arms. They're worried about injuring the person, or they might think, oh, I'm a real badass. I got a sword in my hand. That's the worst case scenario. I got a sword in my hand, so everything's okay. But then all the body mechanics are gone. So that's what, I really try to focus on now, using the targets, body mechanics, rhythm, understanding what you're doing. Form should come from that, in my humble opinion.
That is brilliant. I absolutely love that. Yeah. And I'm not going to get too fluffy here because we are pretty non-woo-woo practitioners ourselves. Mm-hmm. But that to me is internal. That to me is a method of internal practice.
Yes,
and development.
What I think too is and this I learned from the Tong Bei, because Tong Bei doesn't separate internal from external styles. And people, it bothered me, there are camps, where they train internal martial arts or external martial arts, and they separated them. I'm like, in fact, if it's done correctly, I feel like there should not be a separation. I really, really 100% believe that. And I issue this challenge to every Kung Fu teacher out there. Go teach your students the form by hitting something and have the student show you the form afterwards. Don't show them the solo form first. Go out there, teach the student how to use the form. I bet they don't even know a lot of the moves. They're like, oh, this move makes no sense at all. Go hit it on a punching bag or on a tree or something, and then teach the student that way, and then teach them how to use it with a partner, and then have them show you the form. Don't show them the form first, okay? And see what you get, because I did an experiment with one of my students, Jan Yirek. He's a very talented mover. He's a circus acrobat. He does one-arm handstand balancers. He's great. And he could learn relatively advanced forms, but I said, I'm going to start 2 years ago. I started experimenting with him. He was a great test subject. What I said is, I'm going to teach you, Erlu Miao Dao, the second road of Miao Dao, which I had learned in Portugal from, Sun Lao Si, a very famous Bagua teacher. His name is Sun Ruyi. It took us like, the whole, it took us like a week, like 3 hours a day, everybody. We never hit anything. People learned the form, and after they left the seminar in Portugal, everybody forgot the form. And they thought it was very difficult. They didn't understand what the moves were for. And I said, I'm going to teach you this form, and I'm going to teach you not through the form. I'm going to teach it to you on the tree. So he learned the whole thing by hitting, a shinai on the tree and learning every strike from Lu Miao Dao. Everybody look it up, Lu Miao Dao. It's canonical in Chinese martial arts. Second road Miao Dao, not the 4 roads Miao Dao, but the second Miao Dao road. And you'll see, it's a relatively complex form, right? And he learned it on the tree. And then afterwards I said, I think I can teach it to you in 2 hours. And I did. I taught it to him on the tree. And then I said, now I'm going to show you the solo form. And then I said, so follow along me. And then he did, and he couldn't follow me. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do the form with you. You show me the form. And he was like, okay. And I filmed him, and I looked at it. I was like, holy shit, this is it.
He did it, didn't he? He did it, didn't he?
He did it, and it was righteous. I was like, yes, this is everything. This is everything. If people could teach this way, we don't need to be learning these abstract, esoteric moves. He knew because he didn't know anything from what it was in the air. He didn't know any position. He only knew, this is a parry, this is an attack, and it went, da-dunk. He would do a move like this. Hear the rhythm? He would do that. And because he could do that, he went and in his mind, that's all he was thinking. All I did was take away the tree. I said, now do it without a tree. And he did. It was beautiful. Really. It was like my first great experiment in learning in through this reverse engineering. And it totally worked. I was like, I don't need to change anything. Keep it. I'm not showing you the quote unquote real form. That sucks. I was like, this is righteous, because in fact, there were people, he had learned it in 2 hours, and there were people who had learned the same form in Portugal from Sun Lao, who's great, wonderful master from Beijing. And they could not do the form at all. And they had spent 20 hours learning it. I had a student who learned it in 2 using the techniques, and his moves were so much better. You could look at him and then compare it to the other students, and you'd be like, you know what? It's just like you can see he understands the cuts. He understands the use of this movement.
It's fascinating because the way you've described this and the style of learning, I'm a big eater. My dad was a chef. Owen was a chef for a while. And it sounds like when you think about how everyone's teaching the forms first, it sounds like a chef coming with a finished product, some kind of really advanced, fancy souffle. It's like, okay, now cook that. But if a basic student doesn't know what are the eggs for, what portions, does it have salt in it, how much heavy whipping cream, how do I use the measuring cup, what temperatures, it sounds like you're describing all the cooking methods and what ingredients make up the form. And I think that's what's really been missing. This is so cool and fascinating. I really love this, Rosa. This is awesome. Thank you for sharing this.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I think it's so cool. Like what I was really blessed with was like, I have a great group of students in Prague who, and we would train all the time outside. And when it was -10 outside, that's like way, way below freezing. When it was snowing, when it was blizzards outside, they would go to the forest with me and they would train, and they would let me use them as test subjects. And I did. And in doing this, hold on, I need to get the squeaky ball out of my dog's mouth. Sorry.
It's a real Rosa Mei interview, folks. We've got her puppy.
Sorry. He's like, he can't stand it. He's so jealous when I'm talking to other people. No squeaky ball. Okay. So they really let me experiment on them. And I would say, let's try this. Let me hear the rhythm. Do you know what you're doing with this? And I started teaching all forms. It wasn't just the Tong Bei forms. I started teaching every weapon set this way, and it works. It totally works. And then what I did was I taught like in the Miao Dao canon, okay, it's the grain leaf saber longsword. It's very similar. It's a little bit longer than the Japanese katana, right? So there's a set there that everybody who, trains tends to learn. It's called the Four Roads. This is not like the second road form that I was talking to you about. It's more basic. There are 4 roads, and everybody just learns these 4 solo roads. They're relatively short moves, short sets, and they learn this so they can learn all the basic movements of the Miao Dao, right? And I was like, you know what? And I had even seen, for example, Mike, before he died, he choreographed a 2-man set using the 4 roads, and I saw this, I'd seen like footage of his students doing it. And then I analyzed it, and I was like, you know what? A lot of it's missing. Like some parts are accurate and other parts were just like a little bit, like a little bit off. Like it was choreographed, but it wasn't, what the person was doing wasn't exactly matching the canonical version. And we're talking thousands of years of Chinese martial arts texts where they have every move, drawn and written. This is move 1. This is move 2. This is move 3. Okay. So then I said, I'm going to take the canonical 4 roads and I'm going to do the partner sets with it. But first they're going to learn the Miao Dao 4 roads hitting a tree, or, like the playground thing, which was basically like a tree. They're going to hit a target first, then they're going to learn the partner, and then they're going to do that. But then this is the other thing, and I'm going to put this as a question to everyone out there in the world, in the Kung Fu community who teaches Miao Dao, right? For the 4 roads, can your students show what the person's doing on the other side? Huh? Right? You have, if the first road has 8 moves, right? So the moves, if you were to do it, on a tree, would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what it sounds like, right? What's the person doing on the other side? I bet they don't know. You know what? And it's not written in stone. Like, what is the first move? The first move, and they would just do it, and it's like, they don't know that the first move is a parry. And here we have another thing, a canonical move in Chinese martial arts form. If you thought you're learning, if you start a form, would you start a form with an attack or a parry?
Yeah, we were saying attack. Yeah.
Attack starts with a parry. Yes. Yeah. You're like, I know, it's so geeky. I'm sorry. It sounds like
no. We love it. No, we love it. This is so
yeah. You're talking to the right crowd. Yeah.
What a nerd.
Totally.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're in good company. You're in good company. Okay, I've got a couple questions for you, Miss Rosa. One, yes. Do you still practice your aikido at all, or have you kind of integrated it in to some of the other training that you do?
No, I haven't. I can still go and practice, but I don't have I don't go practice that regularly anymore. Because we're always training in the forest, and Aikido is a very particular community. They go in dojos, and because I'm always training with my students in the forest, like sometimes I'll do joint locks on them. I integrate the Aikido into the joint locks into the final moves. Like if you're doing, I was even showing some joint locks today in the training that I had for Tong Bei. Because you can integrate the joint locks into anything. It's like an end move, but joint locks on the whole are very difficult to put on people. Like a lot of times it's interesting, like, Barcelona police uses Aikido as a self-defense technique. But I think that in general, it's a hard style to use effectively. If you have a guy with really fat wrists, and it's like, if he's got huge wrists and it's really muscular, a lot of times if someone doesn't have a high level of skill, I'm just saying that in general, it's very difficult to stick on the china, I feel like, I have pretty decent skills in Aikido and stuff, and still, well, actually my students were quite in pain when I was doing that today, but, they don't have any training, to do that. They don't know how to absorb a technique. So a technique like Nikkyo or like this, or, when you'll do something like Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, or you do things like this, I don't feel it because I've trained my wrists and body to absorb the attacks, So when you take someone who hasn't been training in that, of course, it's very easy to put joint locks on them. But then if I think the one thing that my friends in Aikido used to say, some of my friends, that always bothered me. And it was this, they would say, oh, well, you're assuming, the average guy attacking isn't going to know X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, what? No. I want that person to be like super ninja. That person better be like, that person better be like Navy SEAL quality coming at me full force. I want the best. You come at me with everything you got. And if I have a weakness, let it be exposed. Let me figure out how to address this weakness that I have. I'm not going for the general lowest common denominator. One wouldn't have the wherewithal to think to strike you here or da-da-da. No, I want somebody who has like split second timing and awesome reflexes. Come, get it. It's just like, I want them to make me a better martial artist.
Right. Yep.
Wow. Yeah. So I got another question for you. This is, I don't want to get too personal here, but you had a major surgery.
Yes, I did.
Within the last year. Could you tell us?
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes, this is very, very important in martial arts circles. It's a big gripe I have. Because, so on December 27th, 2001, last year, after Christmas, I had total hip replacement surgery of my right hip, anterior approach. And I had, basically like stage 4 osteoarthritis in my right hip. And this was weird because like for me, I've always been Gumby flexible my whole life. I never even had to do any warm-ups. I could go to any class. That's why I was, I love the contemporary wushu and stuff because I never got injured. I was always Gumby flexible. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't just that I was losing my flexibility in like the span of a year. I was feeling a lot of pain. Like I was going to a house dance battle and I was on a toilet and then I couldn't stand up. I'm like, oh, I can't stand up. I can't stand up. Oh my God. I couldn't straighten out my body. And then I had a lot of pain in my right hip. And then it got to the point where I couldn't sleep any. I really, I had like friends who would like, oh yeah, it's just stuck in the socket. And this is something very important in the martial arts community. They're always like, train harder, get through the pain. We live with the pain all our lives. And like, yep, I'm going to fix it. I can fix anything in my body. I have an intelligent body. And I'm going to do it myself every day. 2 hours, 3 hours, PT. I watched everything on FAI Fix, which is, it's basically like hip impingement. Many martial artists suffer from this. And so when I got the MRI and they told me that was like in 2020, it was during the pandemic. So I was, of course, like nobody's doing any operations. So I'm like, I'm not going to get hip surgery. I'm going to fix this myself. I don't care if it's stage 4 osteoarthritis. I'm going to fix it myself. And I couldn't. It had deteriorated so much by the time, in the fall of last year. Like I would wake up at 3 or 4 every morning and it would be like in pain. I couldn't sleep anymore. And then I'd wake up, do 3 hours of PT on myself and try to get some sleep. And it was like that every single day. And then my doctor, when he saw the x-rays, he's like, let me explain it to you. It can't get worse. You have a couple of alternatives. You can go, you can't fix it on your own. This is like the hip of a 95-year-old woman. And so he's like, with the anterior approach, you will have your full range of mobility back and you won't have the pain anymore. And so I was like, okay, I give up because I couldn't even walk my dog anymore. It was like walking to the block, to the corner to throw away my garbage hurt. So at that point I decided, okay. And people might be asking, but why? What did you do wrong? Or is this a congenital problem? No. You know what? It wasn't just me. It was people and almost everyone who had the knee or who had like this hip osteoarthritis were hyper flexible wushu guys. Hyper flexible. The people who were quote unquote stiff, they're all okay now. The people who went into their 40s and 50s, who train in modern wushu or Shaolin styles, where do we always do our jumps? On the right side. Where do you always do the landings? On the right side. Where do you do your very, very low cat stance, the empty stance? On the right side. You are loading your right hip over and over again. What wushu athlete knows how to do a jump kick aerial on both sides? Nobody. No world champion. Because, and this is something, it's very important that we need to talk about this, because it's about balance in training. Because what I found out when I had my surgery, it wasn't just me who had hip replacement. I had like 3 wushu training brothers, like 2 were on the US team, and I won't say their names. They had already had double hip replacement surgery, and another one had a hip resurfacing. Another guy from New York also went to the same surgeon, and he was called Dr. Su, and he also did another hip resurfacing for him, and it was all because of this unbalanced training. And it is prevalent in all modern wushu styles in Shaolin Kung Fu, because you have a higher difficulty level moves, and you'll see it in breakdancing. It's happening now. And in order to get higher scoring in the system, the high difficulty moves are only done on the right side. You drill it to death on the right side. All your landings are right-legged landings. You start to add up a decade, and then a decade plus of just this. You're talking about 1,000 repetitions a day. Plus, in New York, we were practicing not in a fancy gym. We were practicing outside in Chinatown on concrete and jumping over potholes. There was no cushion. There was absolutely no cushion. But the thing is, we were all hyper flexible. And then we had like tons and buckets of energy. And so it was just like, everything felt good. Everything was like the world was our oyster until it wasn't. It's like, one of my training brothers, Jamal Warren, B-boy nemesis, also great wushu guy, great B-boy. And it's like, Roey, it's like we got an expiration date on our head. It's true. And it's like you have that expiration date on your forehead. And if you're super flexible and you spent your whole life like swing around, it's going to come for you. And it's going to come down like an anvil. You look at Mary Lou Retton, the Olympic gymnast, double hip replacement surgery. What do you think that is? I mean, and I'm not saying it for all, but I'm saying that a lot of it could have been alleviated if we had trained in a balanced way. If we had not trained for competition and did everything the same amount on the left side that we did on the right side. And I'm just saying that in competitive martial arts and in Chinese wushu, it's almost all right-sided, and for the people who only had hip replacement done, it was always on the right side.
Wow.
It was a problem with the system. It was like we all went down, every single one of us. You know what I mean? And this hurts my heart. It hurts my soul. I mean, they're all doing great now. And the thing is, for me, after I was so scared, but after I had the hip replacement surgery, actually, I was sure to walk as much as possible. I was up, that same day, the first day I walked after the surgery, I walked 5 kilometers in the hospital, and then like, they say you have to keep on walking. Don't do anything crazy. I'm like, I'm just going to keep on walking and walking and walking. So then I walked like 1,000 kilometers, I think in like 2 months or something. Then I wrote a book about it, because this was the thing. I thought walking was the most boring thing in the universe. Like I was an adrenaline junkie. And so all I could think was, I'm going to do a flip. If I have to get to point A to point B, I'm just going to roller skate or ride a bike or do anything pretty much except walk. Unless you don't have an option, you have to walk to the subway. You have to walk to your training space, right? But other than that, you're going to run, you're going to tumble, you're going to flip, and so it was really like a wake up call. And then when I started walking, I started researching, and I was like, this is really interesting, because the whole act of walking, which we all take for granted, is actually something very scientific. And if you think about it, because my doctor looked at my gait, he's like, you got to fix that gait. I was like, what? He's like, you walk funny. I was like, I've walked funny my whole life. No, like you come out of ballet class, you walk like a duck, you come out of kung fu training, you walk like a gorilla. Nobody says anything about it. You walk with your feet turned out. You're hobbling along because you're sore from training. Normal. Who talked about it? And then when he said, you got to fix that gait. You can't walk like that anymore. And I was like, okay. And then I realized when I did research, walking is a science as well. And walking correctly. And now, I've walked almost 4,000 kilometers. I never stopped walking. I do like 15K a day in addition to my other training. You use the transverse axis. It's not just putting one foot in front of the other. You actually engage the whole body, and you use like the back, and you should feel the diagonal lines from your shoulder to your like your butt. You should feel that axis each time you're walking. So you're creating this swinging motion in your body. It is something technical we don't think about. In the same way that I ran before my hip thing, I used to run every day. I was like a natural runner, and I never analyzed my gait. And my gait was all wrong. I was like, I changed my gait. I did tons of research, and I fixed my running gait too. And these are big game changers, I think, as athletes, as martial artists, we all have to think, don't take stuff for granted just because you have a hypermobile or flexible body. Think about how to do things in a kinesthetically sound way, so that it's not like, because what 20-year-old gives, about doing things correctly. It's like you have all the energy and flexibility in the world. You never feel any pain, but it's going to come for you, and I think this, and people can't think, oh, this is just for old people. It's for octogenarians. No, it's a healthy way of living. Like, you want to eat well, you want to train well, but, do it in a balanced way. Don't just do all your front kicks or your difficulty moves on the right side. You better be training that left side. For every sequence or combo that you learn in martial arts, because most of the times in forms, it's the right side, you better be figuring it out what it is on the left side. You shouldn't have a dummy side, or you should double up the reps on your dummy side. So your dummy side is smarter than your quote unquote smart side. Mm-hmm. I believe that the whole system of training needs to integrate, this sort of balanced approach to training.
Owen, do you have any questions for Miss Rosa Mei?
I don't. I asked most of the ones that I had, but I loved that. I loved the fact that you shared that with us, and you emphasized how important it was. And I completely agree. I've been a professional body worker and things like that, so I really have a good feel for what you were saying in terms of sort of matching the gait on both sides and training on both sides. I think you're right. It's so important.
Rosa, I don't know. Is there anything that you wanted to add on besides what you've talked about so far? I do have one question for you. Yes. So I see what you're doing with your teaching, and that is absolutely amazing. What are you personally working on in your own personal practice? What's something right now that it could be one or two things, 5 or 10, whatever it is, but is there one thing right now that you feel like you're like, as a practitioner, not just as a teacher, but in your own work? What are you working on right now, my friend?
It's really interesting. It's really a lot of stuff that I've spoken of now. I think a lot about the use of torque. How you're going to actually use the torque in your body to generate this twist. We call it ningjing, to execute the motion. How you have connected movements, so that you have a flow between the motion. Like, one thing that's really interesting, this idea of freestyle that I was talking about, very, very important. And something that I figured out, because I was watching a lot of how are people actually practicing freestyle in all different styles of martial arts. Cause I feel like we must learn to improvise in martial arts, right? We should all be like Herbie Hancock and Thelonious Monk. I don't see a lot of that in martial arts. I mean, I wish people would do more of it, so I really think about changing up combos, how you switch it up, how you play with the forms, but actually keep the structure still in there. And one of the things that I figured out that was really, really cool is if you, and this has to do with gesture drawing. Gesture drawing is like a type of figure drawing that's used by Marvel Comics and animators, and they talk a lot about C curves and S curves, and a lot of times when I'm teaching my students, I was like, look at that. Oh, because in Tong Bei they always say 2 strikes and 1, high low, down up, or you have the infinity sign. So now what I'm experimenting on is creating a free form flow, using this strategy, because if you do high-low, you're not just going thwack in, thwack out, in, out, in, out. I feel like many times martial artists are too much worried about quick in, quick out. But if you actually try to create a flow continuing your motions, like you use these as transitions, like the C strike where you have a high low, or you use the infinity sign or figure eight, and then you add a thrust and a recoil, right, to it. Then you really have a whole system for having seamless strikes that are very, very unpredictable, because you're not just going in, out, and then strike one, strike two. No, how do they connect? This is what I find fascinating now, this sort of connection. And also really every day I have to work on getting heavier hands. I never think about that so much, except with the Tong Bei. It was really, really important. And this, I think also because I get a lot of comparisons. People write me all the time, comparing Tong Bei to Pigua. But I would say that the big thing that I don't see so much in the Pigua is you really, and I got a lot of this from the Wuxing Tong Bei, because I see the guys in Beijing, and I'm like, holy, what is that? They swipe and you can't see it. It's like, and their hands are so heavy. It is through the relaxation, because they're so relaxed. It's like one of my trading partners, Huang Fei, he's one of the disciples of Tong Bei in Beijing, and he's so loose that when he swings his arm out, it's almost like he dislocates his arm out of the socket, and he's holding on ligament energy, and swinging full throttle with a heavy hand. And you got to think about that. If you attached, say, even a 2-pound kettlebell, a light kettlebell, right, to a heavy rope, and you're going to swing this 2-pound kettlebell around. Imagine that being your hand, and you'd be like, and that can be like a great light bulb movement, because what I see in a lot of practitioners now is they use their arms too much, and if you have this heavy hand, you have to connect it to your body, you really have to think of this pendulum swing. So you're never initiating from the arm. It's always moving from the hips. So it's a lot of that I'm thinking of. I'm always thinking about how do we divide or bridge this rift between, the forms and the fighting. I also, one thing, and I must address, because people talk to me about it a lot, and I see it as a big conversation in the martial arts community. You have the people are always talking about this topic of, is it real? And it's really, it's something I take very much to heart, because I'm trying to mesh form with function, right? So I'm totally about that. But then I also have, and he's a good friend of mine, when he teaches a style called Kala, and it's linked to Krav Maga. It's basically like a fight club, and they go into these basement areas. It's an Israeli fighting system, and they bludgeon each other. They go in, one of their promo things is spitting blood into the bathtub, or a tooth that's lost. He would come in and he had multiple scars on his head. And I was like, who did this to you? Who did this to you? He's like, no, I needed it. I needed it, or else, I'm not, otherwise it's not really fighting. And I was like, is it that? Is this what we're looking for? Is it that you're looking for, in order for it to be real, you have to injure someone? Is that the litmus test? That's one extreme. But then I've also have students who have been a little bit wiseacrey with me. It was I don't see this as a fighting thing. I don't think this is going to work. No, this isn't going to work. And then they refuse to try this technique, and there's got to be a middle ground. You know what I mean? Because on the one hand, yes, we do want to practice some martial arts. Yes, it is linked to fighting. Yes, we are thinking about quote unquote lethal targets, right? So we're obsessed with this. This is something we train every day, but are we just doing it for health, or are we doing it for fighting? Do we care about getting Parkinson's when we're in our 80s? It's a lot of this kind of thing. Or for example, I'll give you another example. In one of my first Aikido dojos in Michigan, the teacher always trained with a live blade, because instead of training with, the wooden stick that we use for a blade in Aikido, he would train with a live blade. And I don't know why he did this. He would do it. He trained with a live knife, during class. And then there was a beginner who came to the class, and he was just he was just, of course he's skittish and he's going to and he injured the instructor because he's just scared out of his mind. And I was like, what are you thinking? Taking this live blade and then you're taking a beginner and is that the point? We're thinking about how do we push martial arts forth? Is it, okay, well, if I didn't give him a live blade, then it's not real, right? I mean, right? There's got to be. You're not really doing a fighting style unless unless you have suffered a concussion or unless you get some stitches. You know what I mean? It's I get these issues in my mailbox every day. So, it's something that I think a lot about, and I think as martial arts practitioners, it's an important thing to do because once you put it out there or we have more flowery moves or something, you might get massive hate from the MMA community. Going, oh, this is just bullshit and da-da-da-da-da. But then you have the Kala guys who are going, MMA, that's bullshit. That's all staged fighting anyway. You know what I mean? So where is the middle ground? I mean, of course, we all want to be respectful towards each other. We love what we do. And I would say, people, please stop, trash talking other styles. We're all trying to evolve together as a community. We bring each other up. You don't need to say, oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. Because I'm a petite female, I also usually get not a bunch, but every now and then I'll get some emails doing mansplaining to me, oh, if you do this, I'm going to show you the right way. I was like, do I know you? Did I ask you for any advice? Cause I feel like I am eternally a student, never a master. I feel like it's a great philosophy to carry in life. But on the other hand, you also get people who are very presumptuous, So my question is what are we doing in our daily practice to advance ourselves? It's all questions that we have to ask. We want to keep it real, but to what is real? These are all questions, that we think about every day.
My day-to-day job is I actually drive a city bus in Boulder, Colorado. And, I look at it a little bit like driving. We have our everyday driver. I'm a professional driver. You have semi-truck drivers. You have school bus drivers. But then you've got Mario Andretti. You've got, race car drivers and performers. You've got the dragsters that just go 100, 200 miles an hour in a straight line. And they are all driving. And they all respect each other. But for some reason in the world of martial arts, they are using different vehicles and methods to do the driving process, but everyone has to shit on everyone else, which is fascinating. It's awful,
Yeah, I think it's a terrible waste of time. I mean, I can't tell you. And I do get messages almost every other day. Every week I get lots of messages saying, man, I can't believe that, or people trash talking other styles or other teachers. And I'm like, please I'm not going to engage in this conversation. What did you do in your training today? What did you think about your own training? All those old dudes in the park in Taiwan who were just drinking tea and was laughing at other people. 3 hours of trash talking other styles. Oh, let's look at a video of this guy. Oh, look at his neck. Oh, look at his posture. To what end is that? It's not productive. It's not. If you love your art, you go do it. You know what I mean? And do it to the best of your ability. And this communal, pot of knowledge that we have, let's share it and let's have conversations, let's all grow in a constructive way. I mean, when I share my teaching methods, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I'm saying if it helps you, good. I'm glad. And if not, that's okay too. It's okay.
Very cool.
I want there to be more, constructive dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's what we're trying to foster in our own way. So definitely. I didn't have any other questions. What about you, Randel?
Rosa, thank you for carrying us on your shoulders.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah, we got to enjoy, a lot of the time, we always love riffing between each other. That's kind of what our show is, and throwing out ideas at each other. But having somebody else and being able to enjoy, because this has been a true treat and a real joy, listening to somebody else's teaching process, their journey, their methods, and what they're trying to do. And I got to tell you, you were I don't have a checklist over here being oh yeah, she's right there. She's right there. I don't have one of those. But internally, I'm yeah, everything that Rosa just said. As a matter of fact, I'm so nervous. I don't know who we're going to follow you up with. because this has been,
please.
no, honestly, this has been a true joy and a true treat. So we will let you get back. It's about dinner time over there, so we'll let you get off to dinner. Okay. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us.
I also want to implore people, who are out there, because, I must say, like, I wouldn't have met you unless I had started posting on Instagram. Because, in fact, I hate social media, and I didn't start posting. I did not start posting on Instagram until, I guess, June of this year. And then I was like, you know what? I should just put some stuff on there. I'm just going to make it a repository of information. So you go, okay, because people can use social media in different ways. A lot of people use it as a glory page. Like, I'm just going to show, all my awards, my past things. This is my big group of students. These are all the competitions I've won. And I was like, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in seeing people show me your trainings. Show me what you're doing. Show me what you're teaching your students. Show what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I think this is so valuable. Make social media a repository of information and dialogue, instead of, these are the medals and accumulation. Nobody cares about that. I'll just pat you on the back, but then it doesn't actually contribute to moving the art form forward. So I encourage all my, training brothers and sisters, go out there and just, the format is very easy, 20 seconds, document it. Document your voyage, document your journey, it will help perpetuate martial arts. And I have to also say, it's not just on Instagram. Like, of course, there's YouTube, but I was surprised. Like, I also just randomly a couple of weeks ago started posting all the same things that I posted on Instagram to TikTok. And there was a huge, martial, I thought TikTok was just for jokes. I didn't think people on TikTok really cared about I thought that there was just AR monsters and dances and another shuffle dance. And I'm not going to put my martial arts stuff on there. I don't need people ragging on that. And it's a huge community there. In fact, people are interested in serious martial arts content on TikTok. And also because TikTok has a much larger reach now than Instagram or YouTube.
Right.
So all you schools out there, go put the same reels that you're posting on Instagram and YouTube on TikTok, and let's build a meaningful community there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Did you have any, you have any contact information here at the end you wanted to give to anybody, or we can post your website in the show notes as well?
Oh, yeah, Instagram, Zhenwu Praha, on TikTok, it's the same thing, Zhenwu Praha, on YouTube, and on TikTok, Bionic Kung Fu.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank
Rosa,
you, guys.
Yeah, it's been
Have
great.
a blessed day.
Yeah.
You too. Thank
Enjoy
you so
your
much.
evening. Bye-bye.